Hi, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Shirley, and we're bad at scheduling things. We lied to you last week. We were supposed to have a guest star, but schedules kind of conflicted and kept us from doing that this episode. But don't worry, we're going to have more guest stars in the near future. But for now, you're just stuck with us.
Yeah, and Amy will be guest starring in season 19, so it's not like you're never going to see her. And this is Podcasa Bonita.
All right, well, today we're going to be reviewing, or commentating, whatever we do.
Commentating?
I don't know what we're doing. On season 10 of South Park.
All right, why don't you go right ahead?
Yeah, it's a decade ago. But we'll start right off with the return of Chef.
Aired March 22nd, 2006.
After a long hiatus, Chef returns to South Park, but the boys notice that he isn't the same friend he used to be. So, this is, infamously known as Chef's technical last episode. This is where they got rid of Chef because of the Scientology episode in season 9. He quit, and they had to kill him off somehow, and this is how they did it.
Ugh. I get that they were had limited options since it was so last minute, and they had to really scramble to figure out how to kill Chef off, but I think this episode is kind of disappointing. I think Chef deserved to go out better than that.
Yeah, I think there are some points where I was like, wow, they really handled that with grace, and then other times I'm like, oh, y'all are just kind of bitter.
Right.
Y'all are so bitter. Well, according to, Matt and Trey and everything in, their interviews around this time, South Park was in the news all the time, especially for the first few episodes of this season and the last episodes of the other season. So much controversy had happened. There was the Scientology thing. The Bloody Mary episode was pulled, so Scientology wanted, this Church of Scientology wanted their episode to get pulled, and they were just in the news all the time, so I think they were just really tired. I think they were just really bitter. And I don't necessarily have a problem with this episode, but at the same time, it's Chef was such a loved character.
I know.
You're disappointed with the actor, but it doesn't mean you have to be disappointed with the character.
Right, Chef didn't deserve their wrath for if they were disappointed or mad at Isaac Hayes at the time.
But at the same time, I do think there's the Kyle speech at the end where it's we shouldn't be mad at Chef, we should be mad at that fruity little club for scrambling its brains.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm I think you're also just mad at Chef.
Yeah.
You're mad at Isaac Hayes.
I wanted to bring that up. This episode was kind of disappointing to me, but the whole scene where Kyle is reading this eulogy that he wrote at Chef's funeral, and I'm tearing up, and I'm oh my god.
See, I think
that was awesome.
The ending eulogy that Kyle gives kind of redeems this episode, and it's sort of and Darth Chef, I forget about that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I like how they parody their own Scientology episode in this one, because when they were talking about the Super Adventure Club, they had the whole "this is what they actually believe" thing at the bottom.
Yeah. I thought that was funny. They keep, since it was such a big deal, they're I guess we have to go back to talking about Scientology.
Right.
Well, I think that's all I have to say about that episode. Are you ready to move on?
One last thing is that just one more thing. It's the funniest joke of the whole episode. It's really actually stupid. It's the stupid joke that Cartman tells at the beginning, where he's hey guys, you know what they call Jewish women's boobs? Jews.
I love that. I forgot about that.
I remember because that made me crack up when I was watching it, so I had to make note of it.
I love that. There are so many screen caps of that and everything. People use it all the time because it's just so funny.
Okay, now I can go on.
To Smug Alert.
Aired March 29th, 2006.
Stan persuades everybody in town to buy hybrid cars, not realizing that the new cars cause different kinds of dangerous emissions, which ends up in a climactic finish in the midst of San Francisco.
Cinematic.
It's kind of cinematic. I think this is great. I like this episode.
Yeah, me too. I think Gerald is the perfect person to be that fart-smelling, hybrid driving smug asshole.
This is so funny, but it's kind of juvenile. I'm such a kid that to me the funniest parts of this episode are where they fart and then they just they just smack their lips
Yeah, and I love like the kids' reactions to it, where Kyle and I like moved to Los Angeles or wherever the fuck, and then they're like, oh, we don't really do drugs, and then the kids are like, you will. That's the only way that we can handle our parents smelling our own farts all the time.
It's so funny because like, I mean, I was really little when like hybrid cars were first like a thing, so now they're kind of like more normal and everything. Like the original, you know, edge of them has kind of worn off the years, but I don't know. I think this is like really funny just watching everybody get like so smug. Like,
I know.
That's pretty clever. The smug and the smog thing.
Yeah.
Like that's clever.
And I love the fact that this is kind of like based on a true story. I think it was Matt who said he like bought his mom a hybrid car and he was driving it, and then someone's like, "Good for you." Oh, was it Trey?
Yeah, it was Trey.
Okay.
It's not that I know that though, but like I can differentiate. But yeah, like I also love how Stan and Kyle are so gay.
I was just gonna mention Stan's like gay little song for Kyle, where he's like, "Come on, people now, let's all be people now."
Gotta drive hybrid cars, people now.
Right, like what even is that song? That's pretty bad. Come on, Stan.
Also, I love how it shows that like Cartman actually needs Kyle because he needs that outlet to get like a reaction.
Yeah, he needs to have someone antagonize him all the time, or else.
Yeah, a foil. He needs like his own little foil. And Butter's he's a little sponge. He soaks up everything and he doesn't care.
Right, he's not cutting it.
But yeah.
And then this episode, like, I always think, like, when I hear Smug Alert, I always think about Kyle, but it's really not a Kyle episode. But I do think that him having that speech at the end was like a good way to wrap up the episode, kind of like the last one.
So yeah, I really like it. I like how they emphasize, like, because, you know, it'd be easy just to say, like, oh, don't drive hybrid cars. And it's like, no, drive hybrid cars. Just don't be a...
I love when the people are like, I'm not ready.
They're like, hey, it could really save... So I really like the ending.
Yeah.
It's just like, you can drive them. It's a good thing to drive them. Just don't be, you know, an egotistical asswipe about it, you know? Quit sniffing your own farts.
Alright, are you ready to go?
Yeah, let's go on to Cartoon Wars, Part 1.
Aired April 5th, 2006.
The town is in panic when Fox animated sitcom Family Guy angers the Muslim world by attempting to air an image of Muhammad. Meanwhile, Kyle and Cartman fight over whether or not Family Guy should stay on air.
Okay, can we just combine the two right now? Instead of talking about... Okay.
Part 1 and Part 2 together because it's really hard to separate the two.
Okay, yeah, and then Part 2 aired April 12th, 2006.
Cartman meets with the president of Fox in an attempt to cancel Family Guy and discovers the real writers behind the show. Meanwhile, the people of South Park bury their heads in sand pits to avoid watching the latest controversial episode of Family Guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, this kind of two-parter, I really do kind of combine the two. I don't really see them as separate episodes because they're just kind of a big part of the story. You can't really differentiate the two. That doesn't mean that they're bad.
No, I know. Like, usually with two-parters, I can, like, totally differentiate the two episodes, but these two are, like, so, like, I can't do that.
They're, like, stuck together, which isn't a bad thing, but the weird thing is, like, before I rewatched it for doing this podcast, I'm like, oh, I'm not really big on the Cartoon Wars, you know? I thought it was kind of, like, you know, I feel like it was just overdone too much, and, at the time, like, I wasn't quite, like, sure on the moral. I didn't quite get it, but I realized that this episode, in showing an image of Muhammad, really isn't about the religion. It really isn't about it. It's about the free speech, which took me a little while, and it took me watching the episode again to remember. I'm like, oh, I get it. It's really not about trying to push a joke. It's trying to exercise free speech, which is something like, on one hand, I give a lot of credit to Matt and Trey and the writers of South Park of having the bravery to do that. And then on the other hand, I don't necessarily blame Comedy Central for censoring the episode because they were getting threats, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like this weird thing where it's like I can appreciate the episode, but I also I justify the censoring.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I guess Yeah, I know what you're saying. Especially, I think they did a good job of having the Cartman and Kyle like standoff almost was good in these episodes because especially good because usually when they have that kind of thing, it's like Kyle is obviously right and Cartman is obviously wrong. And this one, Cartman is doing it for like the wrong reasons, but they did do a good job of using each character to like kind of voice each side of the controversy. And honestly, Cartman kind of makes a lot of sense, and I find myself agreeing with him at some points where he's like, I don't know, but if people get hurt, is the joke really worth it? And I'm like, damn, that's kind of a good point. I don't know, man. I ended up siding with Kyle at the end, but yeah.
That's what actually really got me, and I'm like, it's not even just about the joke, it is about, that's where I find myself, because originally, when I first watched it, I'm like, man, I don't think they should ever touch this subject, and I'm like, and then I rewatch it, and I've kind of like matured with the show and everything, and I'm like, well, it's really not just about a joke, it is about your ability to say something without being, pressured or threatened, like
no, yeah, exactly.
Violence. And so it's kind of like, I kind of pat the writing team on the back for having the bravery to do it. Mm-hmm. But I don't criticize Comedy Central for censoring it, because it really is something that could have been lethal, could have been dangerous. Mm-hmm. But okay, the best part, and to me it's one of the funniest scenes in South Park ever. I laugh every time I watch it. Is the terrorist retaliation where it's the video?
Oh yeah.
It's up to crap like that. So funny.
Yeah.
I'm an American woman. I have no husband. I'm pregnant with a baby. They're like, let's all crap on each other. Like, that is so funny. Like, I laugh my ass off every time I watch it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is pretty funny. And going back to what we were talking about before, I was gonna say that I also like how like ballsy and totally self-aware Cartman is in this episode. Like, I like the part where he's talking to the Bart Simpson parody character. And he's explaining how he's gonna like scare the network into getting Family Guy off the air or whatever. And then the Bart goes, well, isn't that like terrorism? And Cartman's like, no, it's not like terrorism. It is terrorism. Yeah. And they did I really love that line. I think it's really essential to the episode, and it shows like their view and the whole thing, how they don't want to let terrorism win by not showing the Muhammad, and also how kind of despicable Cartman is. Even though I do like totally agree with him that Family Guy sucks, and I don't like it, but he doesn't have the right to get it canceled.
See, and that, to me, I could go on and on forever about the Family Guy like portion and everything. And I know after this episode, like Seth MacFarlane was like really upset about it. Like he was like, I really looked up to them, I really felt like. And this is at the time of Family Guy where it wasn't as terrible as it is now.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of people agree that Family Guy is like really awful right now, and to me it's just kind of resorted to shock value and really shitty cutaway gags.
Right.
But like Matt and Trey even themselves, like if you listen to the commentary on these two episodes, they're like, we don't like Family Guy, we don't respect its writing, because the cutaway gags, and when I really agree with them, the cutaway gags kind of like, they have nothing to do, it's a cheap joke, it's not a very smart writing technique, but they still say like, we think smart people write on the show, we think that
lazy.
There are really talented people who work on the show, but they just don't respect it from a writing standpoint, which I really agree on. Like, I think there are some episodes of Family Guy that from the older like seasons that are really good, but now I don't even like bother with it. I don't consider it a good show.
Yeah, I totally agree with them. Like, I don't by any means think it should be off the air. If people enjoy it, that's fine. But I've never, like, because I know my brothers and my cousins, like, a lot of them are into Family Guy. And I remember I used to be, like, really salty about it, so I, like, made sure they watched South Park, too. But I've never found Family Guy funny. I always thought it was stupid and just not funny at all. I never saw the appeal of it. And I totally agree that I think that the writers are kind of lazy, and they could be good, but they're not. They just want to do, like, gag jokes and stuff that doesn't matter. And I love the joke where Kyle is caught in the net, and Cartman's like, yes, Kyle, that anger's good. That's relevant to what's happening in the storyline. I think that joke's really funny.
Well, I also like how, even though they were kind of ruthless with Family Guy and everything, like, they were pretty harsh on it, but all their, like, I think their arguments were justified. But at the same time, they also, ourselves, where it's like, well, at least we don't get preachy and up our own ass. Or he's like, I like Family Guy. I don't mind cheap jokes. They just, they make me laugh, and at least it doesn't get preachy and up its own ass all the time.
And I like the line that Cartman has where he's like, how would you feel, Kyle, if there was a cartoon that made fun of Jews all the time?
But the thing is, South Park isn't making fun of Jews. It makes fun of people who makes fun.
Right.
So it's like, and also, like, one last thing I'm going to mention. Well, I could mention a lot of things. But my fun fact about this episode is that after this two-parter aired, the writers of The Simpsons actually sent flowers to...
in the King of the Hill, people, like, called them and said thank you.
Yeah, like, Simpsons and then the King of the Hill staff, they both, like, congratulated South Park on this episode. And then in The Simpsons later, Bart, in the intro, Bart writes a thing, like, we would stand with you if we weren't so scared. And I'm not sure if that was for this two-parter or if it was later in episodes 200 and 201, but I think it might be for this one.
Okay.
I just know that the Simpsons creators, along with King of the Hill creators, really praise South Park for this.
Yeah. It's kind of... It is sort of satisfying watching this episode because I, like, really hate Family Guy. I think it's awful. So it's kind of satisfying to, like, see them rip on it, but I also kind of, like, feel bad for Seth MacFarlane because not only does South Park hate him, that he, like, really looks up to them, like, all the other animation people hate him, too. I would feel so bad. Although, I mean, they really do basically have this manatees writing the show, though. There's no thought that goes into Family Guy.
Oh, and can we please talk about, I know we're rambling on this episode, but can we please talk about the fight between Eric and Kyle?
Yeah, it's a little slappy fight. I love the when they're, like, riding on their big wheels. It's like...
Cinematic masterpiece. That is so clever and so funny.
Yeah, Kyle and Cartman's, like, little fights were so funny. And they was, like, slapping each other, and it went on for, like, 2 minutes.
I love it. Like, to me, that joke, like, delivers. I think it's so funny.
Just the little slapping noises is, like, too much for me.
Stop it.
Kyle, that was in the balls.
Not the balls. Time out. Like, I've seen playground fights like that before, so I love it. But yeah, I think we're done praising that episode, and now we can go on to bashing the next one.
Okay.
A Million Little Fibers.
Aired April 19th, 2006.
In a parody of James Frey's A Million Little Pieces controversy, Towelie disguises himself as a man and publishes his dubiously written memoirs. Meanwhile, Oprah's vagina and anus try to escape from media mogul who has been neglecting them. Okay, I'm gonna, like, say it. Like, even though I have a lot of problems with, like, other episodes, like, I really dislike Mr. Garrison's fancy new vagina, but this episode is, like, my least favorite of all time, because to me it's so boring. It's so boring. None of the jokes hit for me, and some of them, like, would be, like, obvious, but for me none of the jokes, like, hit, you know? I don't like this episode at all. I hated watching it.
I mean, I don't hate this episode nearly as much as you. I wouldn't even say I hate it. I just think it's weird. I don't really kind of get the appeal of it. Like I just don't get the whole joke basically is that, like, Oprah's vagina and her asshole can, like, talk to each other, and I just don't get why that's happening. Why are they Australian, first of all? It's just a weird episode. I'm like, all right.
See, and I love the character Towelie. Like, I think Towelie is really funny when he's used properly. Like, he's used really well, like, in the episodes before this one, but he's also used well in the episodes after this. It's just this one, like, it has nothing to do with the boys, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, I can watch a show that doesn't focus on the boys and like it, but this one, to me, like, none of the jokes hit, and I think the issue it's talking about is not, like, a memorable issue enough. It's, like, not, it's an issue, like, with the James Frey novel, apparently, like, he wrote a bunch of fake shit, you know, it's fake, and to me, like, it fails because it's not really relevant now. Like, it was so topical back then, but it's just forgettable now.
Right, like, I literally had no idea about that whole thing. Like, I didn't even know that they were parodying anything.
it doesn't hold up. And okay, I think the Oprah's vagina and anus like bit could be more funny if it was not like a still frame. Like literally every shot is just like a 2 to 3 minute shot of just a close up. But sometimes you can't even tell what the close up is.
Right.
Like I feel like if maybe like obviously you wouldn't be able to show her vagina, but if you saw like the fabric of her clothes,
like a camel toe or something.
like camel toe, like talking back and forth and everything, like at least that would have saved the joke. But for me, I'm like, I'm just watching still frame. It's like I know it's talking about a vagina and an anus. It's just not.
Yeah.
It's not funny. Like none of it's funny to me. Like I did not laugh. It was like crickets the entire episode.
I would have to say,
it's always been.
I guess, like, I do love Tally. I think he's really funny. And he's probably, like, the only thing that I really liked about this episode. Because I do love his, like, stupid bit where he's like, no, you're a towel. He's just so...
Yeah, that's funny.
And I love him putting this disguise on so he can sell his book. And the publisher's like, you're not a towel, are you? And he's like, if I was a towel, could I wear this mustache and this hat? I think that joke's funny, but those are really the only things that like, kind of stayed this episode for me. Other than that, I'm like, it's okay, but...
to me, I think the worst crime South Park could do is not be funny, and that's the worst crime about this episode. I don't think any of it's funny. But what's ironic is that this is my least favorite episode, but it aired right before my absolute favorite episode of the entire series. So my least favorite episode and my absolute favorite are right next to each other. Are you ready to move on to my favorite? That is Manbearpig.
Aired April 26, 2006.
Al Gore gets the boys trapped in the Cave of Winds while trying to kill the purported Manbearpig. While in the cave, Cartman finds treasure that he attempts to steal. I can't really pinpoint exactly like what makes this episode, like my favorite. I know like the entire episode. To me, if an episode is funny, like really, really, really funny, I'll love it. And I think I laughed my ass off the entire episode. I think, but my absolute favorite part, I think this is why it might be my favorite, because whatever hesitates to make me laugh really hard is Cartman shitting treasure.
Yeah. And just like his gut-wrenching scream where he's like, "Aah!" Like just shitting it out. And there's so much of it. Shirley's dying. I can see her losing it over there. Alright, well I'm gonna talk while she's doing that. You probably remember me saying this, but this was the first episode of South Park I ever watched, so I totally have like a sentimental thing about this episode, and I do love it, even if that hadn't been my favorite or my first experience with it. And this episode I think is so funny because, I don't know, I think all the jokes just land really well. Every character, Shirley's still laughing. I think Al Gore is super, super funny. Oh my gosh, she's still laughing. Okay, I'm just gonna talk over you. Alright. I love the whole joke with him being like, I'm super serial. That's really funny to me. Oh my god. I think Cartman is super funny in this episode. Like the whole crapping out treasure thing. And I love... He's so like shocked about it, like what?
I sound like a serial killer, I know, but oh my god.
Alright, I'm gonna continue.
Every time.
My other favorite Cartman moment is when he's like after he found the treasure and they're all like sleeping or whatever, and he like gets right up in Kyle's face and he's like, you're not gonna steal my fucking treasure, you Jew rat. And Kyle wakes up and he's like, what the fuck are you doing?
To me, this is like the perfect, like, I'm an apology. It's like an apology episode for how bad A Million Little Fibers was. For me. I think, like, you could tell I was just laughing my ass off. I can't think about the scene that made me laugh really hard, else I'm gonna start again. But, like, I think every part is so funny. Like, I'm constantly laughing. No matter how many times I see it, I still laugh. And, I really love... I love the Al Gore character and everything. They're kind of bashing him, but it's in like the most innocent way.
Right, like the sweetest way possible.
Just kind of like, because I've known people like that. It's like, I don't think he has any friends. I'm like, that is so real, because I feel like everybody relates to that. It's not episode that we talk about, but everybody once knew, like, that you either were that kid or you knew a kid that's, like, nobody has any friends, but they did, like, weird shit and everything, and they expected you to take them seriously, and you're just like, dude, come on. And you'd, like, let them hang out with you just because you felt bad for them.
Right.
That's just Al Gore. I think that's so funny. And, like, I don't know, I think they're, like, ripping on him, but they're doing it in a way that's kind of, like, sweet. You know?
Yeah.
It's not really as vicious.
I love how ridiculous, like, the Al Gore character is. Like, right, I love how he's like, oh, everyone is super stoked on me, even though, like, don't know it.
I love at the end, he's like, we will never forget the little boys who sacrificed themselves to kill Manbearpig. Kid 1, Kid 2, Kid 3, and of course, Kid 4.
I love that part.
I love how whenever it'd be like a totally random moment, characters would be talking, you'd just hear Al Gore go, "Gronk!" It's so funny. Like, we all knew that one kid, and this just happens to be the vice president of the United States. But, oh my gosh.
You know what other part I liked is when they were at the cave tour and they were looking at all the rocks or whatever. He's like it's a mushroom. Yeah, and they're all just penises.
They're all just dicks. I love it.
Like, everything about this episode is so funny.
I love everything about it. It's hands down my favorite.
Yes.
And it's not even one that people consider their favorites, but I love it. I think it's so funny.
It's such a good episode, and I'm so glad that was, like, my first interaction with South Park, like, ever. So I'm 11, and I watched this episode, and I lost my mind. It was, like, the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my life. It still is, but great episode.
Okay, the other part that's really funny is when they're, like, lifting him up by they're lifting Cartman up after he eats all the treasure, like, by the ropes, and he farts, and you hear, change, like, dropping in his pants and everything. Oh, gosh. So funny.
Alright, we should go on.
We should, or else I'll keep laughing like a serial killer.
This is another good Cartman episode coming up.
This is another really good one. Tsst.
Alright, aired May 3rd, 2006.
Cartman's mom calls upon a dog trainer, Cesar Milan, to keep her son from misbehaving, which changes Cartman's personality so greatly that he plans on killing his mother. And what's so cool about this is I think they actually, they consulted Cesar Milan himself and everything. He didn't provide his own voice because I think Trey did the voice. But they asked him a bunch about, like, different methods and everything. And so they, like, gave him an autographed picture and everything, thanking him for all of his help in the episode.
Oh, that's so cool. I didn't know that.
Another fun fact is they found out that people have been going, either contacting South Park or contacting Cesar Milan saying, like, we've used these techniques on our kids and it works. Kids and dogs aren't that different.
Right. Dogs are, if anything, better.
Oh, yeah. See, okay, I love this episode because, you know, I've said before, like, 1,000 times, I've worked in a daycare, and I work with kids all the time. So you can really tell when a parent doesn't want to be a parent, they want to be, like, their child's best friend, and you can't do that, or else you're going to end up with a shitty kid. Like, it's just a fact. Like, if you try and you need to be, you know, more than just a best friend, you can have a great, like, friendly relationship with your child. That's kind of what you want.
Yeah.
But when you start treating them as basically like a king or anything and not giving them any, you know, discipline or at all, like, you're gonna get an Eric Cartman. And I don't think you want an Eric Cartman.
Right. I love this episode because I've always thought the Cartman would be, like, perfect for one of those nanny shows. It was awesome to see him actually, like, go on and want to, like, destroy all the nannies.
That part is really funny. Like, the one that's, like, the nanny, Stella, I think the first nanny that comes in and everything, he, like, gets on to her about, like, nobody ever wanted to have babies with you, and he, like, gets into her head and everything. I'm like, God damn, Cartman, you being...
I know.
This.
He's a savage.
From hell! It's from hell!
Right. And I love the part where, like, Caesar just gets there and they, like, go on the walk or whatever, and Cartman's, like, on a leash. And he's, like, screeching. He's like, Mom, people are seeing me. This is not cool.
It's so funny. Oh, I think it's perfect. And it's one that's, like, has a really It really just kind of focuses on Eric, his mom, and then Caesar Milan, and like that's it. And it's a very simple story. Like there's really nothing topical at all.
Yeah.
And everybody likes these kind of episodes where it doesn't force controversy or anything in itself. But yeah, everybody loves this episode. I don't know anybody who doesn't like this episode.
It's actually, the ending is actually, like, it was kind of essential because we can't have, like, a good Cartman. He's got to be, like, a little shithead or else it won't.
He's fixed.
Or else,
he's a good kid. Like, it clicks and everything.
Yeah.
But his mom just ruins him in a second.
I think the ending is actually kind of sad to me because you kind of find out that Mrs. Cartman, like, only spoiled him because she's, like, really lonely. And it's like, oh my god, that's really sad.
That is really sad, but it also shows, like, gosh, she made him that way.
Right, exactly.
Which is really scary that it's like, he obviously has some components in himself already that he's naturally going to be, like, a difficult kid. But the fact that she, like, helped make him the way that he is now, it's terrifying. It's like, golly, that could happen to, like, any kid. I don't think any kid is going to exterminate the Jews or anything.
Yeah, or plot to kill their mom. That was so funny when he, like, went over to Stan's house or whatever. He's like, and he's like, okay, Kyle and Kenny will sneak into the house, and Stan will put a pillow over my mom's face and just shoot her.
But I think we've talked enough about that one.
Okay.
Do you want to move on?
Yep.
Okay, well, here's Make Love Not Warcraft.
Aired October 4th, 2006.
The boys dedicate their lives to defeating a mad gamer and saving the world of Warcraft. Wow, like, okay, and this was, fun fact, this one has been voted, like, the #1 episode of, like, all time. Everybody,
really?
They, like, did a collective vote at the beginning of the 15th season. This got the first place, and I think it was either first place or it was in top 3 when they did it again for season 20. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I really like this episode, but it would not even enter the top 10 at all. But I think people like it a lot because it has, like, that unique animation style.
Yeah.
Where they actually got Blizzard, so that's, like, really cool.
Right, yeah. Like, 'cause even though I don't play World of Warcraft, I still think the animation style that way is really funny. I love hearing the boys' voices in these World of Warcraft characters. And it was kind of funny because, like I said, like, my cousins and my brother used to, like, love Family Guy. So I'm like, no, you guys gotta watch South Park. It's so much better. So I was, like, introducing them to episodes I knew they would like, and I knew they played this game. So I showed it to them. And all the boys were, like, talking about stuff about the game, and my cousin Max is like, oh my god, I know what they're saying. I totally get it. So that's why I get why people like this episode a lot. Like, combining two things you like.
But it's so weird. I always think that this episode is, like, when I think about World of Warcraft, I'm like, oh, that's something people still play today. You know, it's relatively, like, new. And then I realized this episode was 10 years ago.
I know.
This episode aired 10 years ago. I'm like, god damn, I'm old. I'm just old.
I really like the recurring joke in this one, where it's like, the world of Warcraft. Like, I love that.
I also love, it's like, how can you kill that which has no life and everything? And it's, like, basically truth. Like, a lot of these people who play for hours on end, like, have no life. It's like us. We dedicate all of our time to having no life.
Exactly.
Talking about South Park.
I love, okay, this is me being a total, like, nitpicking mom person, but I'm, like, watching this episode where they're gonna, like, for 7 weeks they're gonna do nothing but play World of Warcraft. I'm like, okay, how did they get time off school to do this? 'Cause, like, I mean, they were in school last episode, and they're in school the next one, so they're not in the summer or anything.
Well, they actually took, like, they contacted Blizzard and everything and took, with creating this episode, it's really cool that they took, like, their time and developed this episode, like, because it's not, like, the regular 6 days to air format and everything. I think that's really cool. I also love how Cartman is still the fattest kid. Even when they all get
He looks
really
like
fat.
Jabba the Hutt, like, for real. Like, the really, really fat Cartman.
Where his mom brings him the bedpan. It's hilarious.
And he shits all over her.
I'm like, that's disgusting. I don't know any parent who would, like, willingly, like, do that in this case. But
I know.
yeah, I think that's all I have to say about
Me
that
too.
one. And speaking of shitting, we're going to go on to Mystery of the Urinal Deuce.
Aired October 11th, 2006.
Stan and Kyle discover the true culprits behind the September 11 attacks, while Mr. Mackey is determined to find out who defecated in the boys' room urinal at South Park Elementary. I like this episode mostly because it rips on conspiracy theories. I don't even care if it's conspiracy theories about, like, actual events or it's freaking cartoon conspiracy theories. I hate them. I think they're so freaking stupid.
I think they're super funny, but, like, you have to acknowledge that they're obviously not real.
Oh, yeah. Some of them, some of them are interesting, and it's one thing to believe, like, a theory is interesting, and then it's another to believe, like, to actually, like, believe it.
Right.
It's like, the freaking cartoon conspiracies, like, oh my gosh, they're based on one another. I'm like, bitch, no, they're fucking not.
I know.
15 years apart, bitch. Come on. Like, stop believing it's real. Like, but,
Oh god, the best part of this episode is Carmen's, like, presentation or whatever, where he's like, who are the most they gave for the 9/11 attacks? Kyle! And he draws a little picture of Kyle with a knife in the two towers.
yeah. Oh my gosh. But my favorite is Kyle's, really?
Oh, yeah.
Really? Like,
Yeah, I'm Kyle, honestly.
Bitch and angry. I love me some angry Kyle.
Yeah. I also love the conversation at the... What? The Hardly Boys.
The Hardly Boys. Oh, I've got a raging clue. Like,
They're both so creepy looking.
They look, no joke, they look like Donald Trump's son.
I was just gonna say that. Literally just about to say that.
Exactly like Donald Trump's son.
They're so gross.
Oh my gosh, the raised lip is so terrifying.
Oh god. So another exchange that I like a lot is, like, at the beginning of the episode where the boys are, like, walking in the hallway and talking about, like, conspiracy theories and stuff. And then Carmen's like, are you saying that 1/4 of Americans are retards? And he's like, yeah, dude, at least 1/4.
At least 1/4. He's like, here, we'll take a poll right here. There's 4 of us. You're a retard.
Yeah. Kyle's such a savage. I love him.
I know. I love it. I love me some angry Kyle.
That's why he, like, goes up so well against Carmen, because they're both, like, complete savages. Like, Kyle does not give a shit.
For real. Oh my gosh. Actually, Kyle gives so much of a shit that he ends up not giving a shit.
Right, like, he doesn't give a shit what he does to Carmen. He's gotta have his way.
But, yeah, I like this episode. It's not my favorite, but I still think it's pretty
I think the writing's clever. I love how the dump and the conspiracy theory thing, like, all tie together at the end. And I love how Stan was the one who did it, and then he was so extra and so dramatic about it that he, like, got the government involved to cover it up.
So fucking extra in this show. Goddamn, this episode.
He pulls the gun on Kyle. Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm ready to move on. Are you?
Sure.
Let's go on to Miss Teacher Bangs a Boy.
Aired October 18th, 2006.
Cartman is appointed the school's hall monitor and becomes an elementary school version of Dog the Bounty Hunter. Meanwhile, an attractive kindergarten teacher has an affair with Kyle's brother, Ike.
I love the music video that Cartman makes.
I am the dog. I was just about to say, like, that's the best part. Like, in the bear maze.
Yeah.
That's my bitch. Maze him. Like, that's funny. But, I really like, I know it's kind of, like, meant as a joke and everything, but it's also, like, kind of serious where people don't, like, take an issue seriously where it's, like, an older woman preying on a younger kid. And like, it's, people really, like, still, people don't see it as, like, an issue sometimes. People are like, oh, wow, look at him, he's so lucky, he gets, like, an older woman. I'm like, no, it's fucking gross. If it's illegal, it's gross.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I really respect Kyle in this episode, because he really goes out of his way to protect his brother. He always does that. But he also, like, really insists that, like, young boys can be raped and taken advantage of by older female pedophiles, which is what they are. And I love this episode because it kind of tackles that controversy in a really, really nice way. And they do it kind of in a fucked up way where, like, Ike is, like, 3 years old and he's having sex with his teacher, but it gets the point across.
See, yeah, it does it in a way where it gets its point across and you, like, recognize it seriously, but at the same time, it's super funny.
Yeah.
And, also, the best, to me, the best line, though, is, like, what's the big deal? All you gotta do is slap her titties around, stick it inside her, and pee. Stick it inside her and pee.
Yeah, Kyle's like, oh my god.
You don't want to get her pregnant, you take it out and you pee on her leg.
Kyle's, like, so done. He's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Funny.
I think my favorite line is the part at the end where Kyle's, like, trying to talk Ike out of the whole thing, where he's like, Ike need to have a life and have fun, and then ruin it by having a serious relationship.
That's so funny.
That was making me laugh.
This is so funny. I also love, like, I love it whenever they get a little kid to voice, like, Ike and everything, and it's like, we're gonna go to Mulan, and he's like, yay, Mulan! Like, I think that's so innocent.
I know.
So but, okay, I think we're gonna move on.
Hold on.
Nope.
Hold
okay.
up, Shirley. Basically, just one last thing.
For me, so I'm hurrying along.
One last thing is that I love, like, the second music video that Cartman makes, where he has, like, his whole squad or whatever, and he has, like, a name and a description, and it's like, it just says Kyle, Jew.
It's so, like, accurate. That is accurate.
Alright, that's all I had to say.
Okay, well, we're gonna move on to Hell on Earth 2006, which is one of my favorites.
I like this
it's
one.
Probably, like, my favorite Halloween.
Alright, aired October 25th, 2006.
Satan throws a Halloween party, which turns into an episode of the MTV's My Super Sweet 16. Meanwhile, the boys summon Biggie Smalls through a Bloody Mary type ritual.
I love that plotline.
So clever. The Biggie Smalls. Oh, I can't do it.
The best part is when Cartman does it at the beginning, and then Randy walks into the bathroom, and he screams, and he's like, oh my god, you guys, I crap my pants.
Oh, that's so funny. I think this one's, like, really funny, and to me, like, a joke that's really smart and just, like, it's really offensive, but it's really smart and clever, and I'm glad they thought of it, was the, parody of the Three Stooges with Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and,
John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah. Like, it's at the same time, like, it has the slapstick parody and everything, but it's so morbid.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Laughing at it like it's slapstick comedy. Like,
yeah, it's
so
like it's such South Park slapstick comedy. Like, it's so dark, and I love how
smart though. I think that's like a really clever idea. I always admire that.
Yeah, me too. I love how, like, the three of them are, like, the most sinister serial killers and, like, terrifying, and yet they're afraid of Satan, who's, like, a teenage girl. Like, I don't get it.
Oh my gosh! And the fun fact for this episode was everybody lost their shit and was so pissed. Not about anything else, but about the Steve Irwin thing, because he had recently passed away, and they had Steve Irwin in hell.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, fuck that. It's like, okay, you're cool with everything else, but the crocodile hunter is your last straw. Too soon.
I love how Satan was, like, really pissed and, like, told everyone, he's like, don't wear a crow costume, you're gonna look stupid. And then he, like, had a crow costume he was gonna wear.
And then later, he does the Britney Spears, like, that is so funny. I love it when, like, Satan is on the show. I think he's so, like, funny. Such a great character. I don't think he's ever been used in a bad way. Like,
I know,
he's always been a really hit character.
Going back to the Biggie Smalls thing, I think that storyline's so funny, because just the whole play off of, like, urban legends and stuff, and I love how, like, pissed off Biggie is about it, and then I love how his thing with Butters, where Butters has to, like, help him and everything. It's super cute.
I also love, like, the little kind of, like, subplot with the Catholics trying to get into little naked boys on the leash and everything. I'm like, damn, that's dark.
I know. And I love how they're like, Satan's trickery knows no bounds, but they're really just pissed. He's like, he won't let them in the party. Like,
this is definitely my favorite Halloween episode.
This is such a funny one.
It's a smart and funny episode, you know? I give it a lot of praise. And I think we're going to go on to Go God Go.
Can we combine these two, too?
Do you want to combine them again? Okay, we'll go with Go God Go Part 1 and then Go God Go Part 12.
Alright, aired November 1st, 2006, and then November 8th, 2006.
Yeah, I'll read both descriptions.
Okay.
Mrs. Garrison objects to teaching evolution in science class, and Richard Dawkins is sent to help her. Meanwhile, Cartman buries himself in the snow and attempts to freeze himself until the day the Wii console is released. Cartman, frozen in the snow for over 500 years, awakens in the future, only to be caught in a war between atheists. I love this episode because as much as I really dislike a crazy, homophobic and racist, like, Christian, or, like, super religious person, I also really dislike an annoying ass, like, asshole atheist. Like, I really dislike those people. And, like, the Meninist sort of types, like, there is no God, I'm euphoric and everything. And I feel like Richard Dawkins is like the king of all those like whiny atheist babies.
Yeah.
This whenever this episode isn't hitting me with that awful transphobia, I like this.
Yeah. I think Mrs. Garrison is like the perfect character for that like ignorant, stubborn Catholic person. Like, she was so funny in the evolution thing, where she's like, oh yeah, this fucking it's retarded frog and fuck this retarded monkey, and then that's why you're here.
You're basically descended from a bunch of retard baby fish, and it's like.
And she just sits down like, yeah.
And I'm like, that's really how some people think it is. It's
I know.
kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
So it's really funny. I like, because like this, if you only know South Park like barely, I feel like this is an episode that you wouldn't expect from South Park, because you automatically assume it's like, oh, they're atheists and everything. So yeah, they're on that side and everything, and it's kind of cool. They're like, no. We're not on anybody's side.
Yeah. I heard, like, atheists got really pissed over this one, because they're like, hey, we thought you were on our side. And they're like, no. We're not on anyone's side.
Don't take sides, bitch.
Right. And I loved the whole part where Richard Dawkins is talking to Mrs. Garrison, like, if there wasn't religion, the world would be so much better. There would be no war and blah blah. And then Cartman goes to the future, and all the atheists are fighting each other, and it's kind of a good message about how like religion doesn't cause war, people do. People are just inherently shitty.
For real, it's like over half of our American wars, most of them aren't even caused by religion.
Right.
They're caused by other civil issues. Like, that's really stupid, really naive to assume that religion causes all the wars. Like, that's really dumb.
Yeah, and this episode, like you said, is kind of unexpected for South Park, because we were talking about this earlier, but so many, like, casual viewers, I don't want to be, like, an asshole, but I feel like if you don't think about South Park too much, you kind of just assume that it's anti-religion, and it's totally not.
Yeah, it's not. If anything, I think South Park is one of the most, like, pro-religion, because anytime they rip on a religion, except for Scientology, anytime they, like, rip on a religion, they're like, hey, if it makes you a better person, and if it gives you comfort, and if it makes you feel happy, and keeps you from doing bad shit, it's a good thing, You should have, and I also like how they also, like, they're not saying that, evolution is stupid or anything. They're saying, it's like, well, evolution can be the answer to how, but not to why,
Yeah.
I think that's, like, really cool.
Yeah, really smart.
The messages in this show, in these episodes, are, like, really awesome, like, on point. I just like them. I like them a lot.
Yeah, I really think the future world is, like, really funny. I love how they always say, like, stuff like, science, damn it, or whatever, because they don't want to say, like, oh my god, and stuff like that. And the otters.
They have perfectly good tummies to eat off of.
Yeah.
Table eaters, like, that's funny.
Alright, we need to talk about Cartman in these two episodes, because he's so funny. I love his Wii storyline. We just can't wait for the Wii to come out. Yes.
Speaking of the Wii storyline, like, that also makes me feel so freaking old.
I know.
Because I remember when the Wii came out, I'm like, god damn, it was 10 years ago.
I know. And I remember being a little kid and being that excited about something coming out, and you just can't wait, and it's, like, unbearable. So I totally, like, can relate to Cartman, because I still remember being that age, and we were talking about this earlier, too. Like, I love this episode because Cartman, like, finally has to deal with himself. Like, everyone else has to deal with Cartman, and now Cartman has to call his past self. And I love when he, like, can't get through to himself, and he's like, God, I hate that guy. It's so funny.
It's so funny. I love that. My sister likes these episodes because it parodies Buck Rogers and everything, which was an old 60s show, and I hate it. Like, I think it's so cheap and boring. But my dad and my sister watched it, like, all the time, and both of them really like this episode just because it's a parody of Buck Rogers.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we're ready to go on to the very last episode.
Yep.
Stanley's Cup.
Aired November 15th, 2006.
Stan must coach a Mighty Duck-style Pee-wee ice hockey team to victory in order to pay off his impounded bicycle. I'm already losing my voice because I have to talk really loud. But out of all of the movies to parody, South Park picked Mighty Ducks.
I really don't think... I mean, it is probably specifically that movie, but they really are kind of parodying all underdog sports movies, because they're all basically the same.
For real. They really are. And a lot of people don't like this episode because it really does have a dark ending. Like, the ending
Yeah.
really,
That's kind of...
really dark. But it's, to me, it's kind of like a BoJack Horseman sort of ending where it's like, nope, that shit's real.
Right.
Like, it's
For me,
out of people.
it kind of reminds me of that one episode. I think it was the Jared one where they're like, "Oh my God, AIDS is finally funny. It's been long enough." And I'm kind of, when I watch this one, I'm like, it hasn't been long enough. Cancer isn't funny yet. Like, I know what you're trying to do, but
It's not funny yet. Like,
yeah.
someone's dying. I'm like, God. Like, I don't find myself like offended.
I'm not. I'm just yeah.
I'm not getting the laugh. I don't
I know.
feel like a lot of viewers get the laugh
Right.
with this one because it's like, damn. It's not to the point where it's like, oh, this is offensive. This is terrible.
Exactly.
But it's like, man.
I'm not offended. It's just that the episode is more sad, but I think it was trying to be funny, but it wasn't.
Yeah, and I think I know like Matt and Trey kind of looked back at it and were like, we thought it was funny at the time, and then we kind of realized like, that was a little sad, and it is.
Mhm.
But what I do like about this episode, like I really love when kids, like really small kids, like voice in the show and everything. Like they
Mhm.
did it in the preschool episode. They do it whenever they have Ike or Karen.
Mhm.
But I'm like, I'm just trying to imagine, like, I bet they do it like in a group too. I don't know if they do it like individually or as a group, but I'm just trying to imagine them trying to direct all of these like little tiny children. Say like, Coach, why do people get cancer? And on one point, like, they're so adorable because it's like a little kid, you know? You just
Mhm.
hear like the little kid being all innocent and everything, and then you hear the raw shit that they're saying. You're like, God damn.
I
Like,
know.
this is dark.
Stan's whole storyline with Nelson really reminds me of basketball with Trey's relationship with that little dying kid or whatever, Joey, whatever his name is. That reminded me of that so much while I was watching it. I never realized that before.
Think about that. Why'd you make me think about that? Now I'm never gonna be able to watch this episode without thinking of that. God damn.
I think my favorite line of the whole episode is when Stan comes home late and his parents are pissed off, and Randy's like, "Stan, your mother has been worried sick, and I've been watching TV."
I love Randy's storyline where he's like, I can't do it. I can't relive the pain of your loss. Back
I know Stan doesn't even remember.
But yeah,
Randy's so
I can see why
dramatic.
this one isn't like people's favorites. I know this is on people's like least favorite list because it is so dark. I don't have a problem
Right, like-
with it. I think it has a lot of funny moments, but I can totally get why some people aren't huge on it.
But I must say that the thing that kind of saves this episode for me is because I love the ones where Stan gets kind of like thrust into some ridiculous movie parody plotline. Like he did it in the Aspen episode, and then there's some other one that I'm thinking of that he was in, and then this one too. And he's like that character they do it with a lot. Like it's really, they're gonna parody some stupid movie and they put Stan in it, and he works really well in that.
And like Woodland Critter Christmas
Yes.
is kind of an example.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know. I don't really realize that. I don't recognize that until we do these podcasts and like compare them. But they do that a lot with Stan.
Yeah,
And
he's always so. He's always like, oh my god, like so like exasperated and like, god damn it. He's just a good character to parody a
he's the
stupid
straight
movie.
man, you know?
Exactly,
He's
yeah.
like,
Stan's a good
everybody
job.
else is losing their shit.
Right. I don't think any of the other boys would like do a good job in this setting. I think this is really a good Stan episode.
Yeah.
And
Stan will still do the shit, but Kyle would just get too heated.
Right.
And get too involved in it.
And Carmen just wouldn't give a shit because it doesn't have to do with him. Because Stan like cares, but he's like, oh, I can't believe I have to care about this.
Yeah, and Kenny they just kind of forgot about.
Right.
So I guess Kenny wouldn't fit this. But, yeah, I think we're done here.
Hold on. Again, one more thing. I think I love the the narrator guy with like the record player.
Oh yeah, I forgot about him.
He's like, whenever I think of this episode, I always think of him like right away. He's like, he just shows up and starts narrating shit. He's like, Stan Marsh.
Stan Marsh. He sounds like the Rob Schneider he is.
Right. Like Stan Marsh thought he had it all. It's like the record scratch. It's so dumb.
I love it whenever they parody like shitty movies. Like they do that later in the Asperger's episode and everything. It's just like
See another Stan episode.
Yeah, more Stan.
I love Stan.
So are you finally fucking done now?
Yeah, this is a short episode. We didn't even get to an hour.
Really?
55 minutes.
God, I thought we were talking for.
It's because we didn't have a guest star. That's why.
Yeah. But well, next week I think we're supposed to. I'm not gonna go ahead and say that we will because in case the shit happens again.
Right.
We're supposed to have one of our Tumblr friends, Weedle Testaburger, on our show. We're really excited to have him. He's going to be awesome. I think he's doing 2 shows, actually, in a row.
Yep.
So, yeah, keep an eye out or ear out for those episodes. Ask us some questions. We haven't had those in a while. And, yeah, contact us if you want to join the show. We're trying to think of other shit for us to do.
Yep. All right. Yeah, let us know what you think. Any comments you might have, let us know.
Yeah, and thanks for listening, guys.
Bye.
Bye.